What's going on, Cigar Club family? Welcome to another episode on the Cigar Club podcast. This is a new one for us because we got two people not in the cigar industry, which excites me greatly, to bring a new perspective of a new craft that in a lot of ways, I think at least, has a lot of parallels from like sourcing and farming and agriculture in countries where the product is grown. But we're here in Cincinnati, Ohio, aka Cincy, aka Cincy, aka the Queen City, with David and Dan of Proud Hound Coffee Roasters. Welcome to the podcast, boys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
If you guys have been following for the past, I don't. What month did we release that? Like January, December, maybe.
2020, right? Was that 2020?
It was 2020. Mm-hmm. So last year we released our first series in the Cigar Club Coffee series, the first blend with you guys, with a Mexican and a Costa Rican honey processed coffee. And that was an amazing launch. And now we're working on blend number 2. And we stopped by the roastery today. Well, actually, we're in the cafe, the newly opened cafe here in Cincinnati. But we're back in the roastery part of it for most of the day, cupping coffees, watching Dan roast and toast beans.
Roast and toast.
And
baking.
Working on the next iteration right here. So anyway, if you guys have had this coffee, these are the guys behind it that individually hand roast each bean over a Bic lighter.
The 2-pound hound.
The 2-pound hounds are right here.
Dang.
So there you go. You get a face to them. But anyway, kick us off with a little bit about you guys, your background in coffee, and just like get us up to speed to how we got here in Silverton to this cafe, which definitely didn't happen overnight.
Yeah, so we actually me and David met at my first shop here in Cincy called Brick. And kind of formed our like friendship and relationship and business partnership there over the years. I know I'd say like in the first like couple months we kind of knew we were gonna start something together one day. So yeah, I had the opportunity to open a shop right out of college. Ran that for a couple years, and then just kind of like we all mutually agreed that it was over. Time to move on to the next thing. I knew roasting was the next thing, and this concept of what could a cafe look like. That wasn't, just your normal couple, 10, 12 seats, coffee, some good pastries. What would it look like to add like this really amazing like food concept with somebody spearheading that's their background, that's their passion is kitchen and food and creating that culture, and then partner that with the coffee side, which is what obviously we both know and I've been doing for I guess I'm on my 7th or 8th year now in coffee. 6 years as a barista and shop owner, and then now 2 years as roasting and more green coffee side of stuff. And then yeah, so we've been working on this concept since 2018. Picked the name fall of 2018. Kind of knew it was like kind of go time. I got my dad involved. He only reason we're here. But he was ever since I opened my first cafe, he was really interested in the everything going on and kind of like the background. We're both from agriculture, so it makes sense. So he was like interested in the sourcing and the producers at origin and what the cafe experience was like. So he's a part of it as well, and then just started building the team from there.
And you, sir?
Sweet. Yeah. I've been in coffee for a while now, all based in Cincinnati. So I just kind of hopped around from shop to shop, kind of learning different experiences as I go. But throughout the whole thing, I just really loved being in hospitality, loved getting to talk to people, talk about coffee, about life, and all of that kind of gave me life, which is kind of fun. And like what Danny was saying, we met at Brick, and we just kind of joked around and dreamed about like, let's make a shop that like blows everybody out of the water, and like what does that look like? And Proud Hound was it. Like we like going to places that do coffee really well, and places that do food really well in the same medium. But then like there's only like one spot that was doing it in Cincinnati, and they're closed now. So now there's that hole to fill, and that's us. So we're gonna do the thing and make good coffee and good food at the same time. But yeah, I love coffee. My role here mostly is the education side of things. We value education greatly in coffee. We want to make sure that any wholesale partner gets all the things that they can do to make good coffee, because we understand that not a ton of wholesalers are really providing that. And we've talked with many shops around Cincinnati or across really the nation, and people feel like a little bit, out of sight, out of mind when they're using somebody else's coffee. They're just pretty much brewing it at that point.
Right.
And they're like, I kind of feel lost, or I wish I had more training. But it's like, where are these roasters at? Like, where are they offering this training? So we want it to be a huge goal to be a business that offers education, because that's a big part of coffee. Like, it'd be a huge dishonor to the people that are growing the coffee if we're not, making good coffee in the end, because we're the last bit of the supply chain. So,
Right.
I think also is like really why we started Proud Hound is all of the pain experiences we had in like our jobs and starting businesses and being a part of those different cultures. They weren't all bad experiences, but we saw a lot of like gaps to be filled that we kind of were like, we're passionate about that. And it'd be great if there was somebody, us, that could figure out like, how do we fill those gaps and those needs for people in the industry that like we had to experience, and just create a better industry and a better culture around it, so that there was a place where people could go and be like, hey, like I'm missing this, or like, where do I find this? And it's like, oh, like we've built a business basically around this idea of how can we provide every single resource and tool to people within like the service industry and the coffee industry, to like do the best they possibly can. And,
Right.
Not only from serving the coffee, but growing a business. I mean, I think that's a huge part of it as well, is how do you make your business grow and thrive, and your employees grow and thrive, and create these career opportunities for people. So, the bad rap of coffee is like, being a barista is a halfway point for people. It's like, oh, I'm being a barista while I get like my real degree.
Right.
And none of us want that for anyone that wants to, be in coffee full time, because there's a lot of career opportunities here.
Yeah, and it's also coffee, like cigars, goes way back, and a lot of hands have to touch coffee before it gets to a barista's hands or a supermarket shelf. Like, it starts with farmers and people in agriculture in different countries all around the world. And I think there's a level of like transparency that happens with third wave cafes and roasters, which is a blanket term, especially now. It's like, are we on the fourth wave? I don't know. But that is always seems to be a focus from you guys as well. So I'm really curious to talk through, we at CigarClub, we spend a lot of time educating and sharing the behind the scenes of the life of tobacco, and that it on average touches between 350 and 500 hands before the cigars in a cigar store. Just from like planting seeds, harvesting crop, drying crop, fermenting crop, like so many things, just like all the processes that go into making coffee, what it is. What part of that process to you is your favorite to kind of highlight and share? Because before you like really dive into the rabbit hole of coffee, you have no clue what actually goes on, that coffee is even like a freaking fruit. Like,
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. And then you start to learn that, and then you see all the producers and the farmers that this product affects. What is the question I guess I'm getting at is like, what is the importance to you of like highlighting that in all the coffees that you sell and buy?
I think for us, like figuring out how to be transparent in a like productive, positive way is kind of where we're at. I think transparency has been on like everyone wants to be transparent. Sure. Everybody wants to be able to say like, you can trust us, things like that.
It kind of becomes pretty greenwashy too. They're like, I do this, our business does this, but it's like, you don't really offer a ton of proof. And that way you just kind of use language.
Fair trade.
Yeah, exactly. Fair trade, or
organic.
Like, we're like building all these things for these people, and it's like.
Yeah, all that stuff's like super important, but it's like for us, it's none of that. We don't want to sell it. Like, it's not for us to make money off of. So if like how you guys are saying, like, we just want to educate consumers for like a better understanding of the product they're receiving, and like the impact both in an economical and like a livelihood, and how it's impacting
totally
communities and farmers from like their own lives, and how that, is it making it better? Is it getting worse? Things like that. For us, it's how do we use all this information to get people to ask questions rather than say like, all right, buy this coffee because we have like these 3 things that we can check off the list of like ethical, transparent, and like, it does good work. Which all those things are super important, but I think it's the intention and the heart behind the company and the person that like you really have to trust. I don't know, trust, if that's like the way to think about it. Or so
You also have to like actually care.
yeah,
Like beyond
that's
like
huge.
people want me to care.
mm-hmm.
First, like I actually care. So this is what we're actually doing.
Yeah. So I think our things that we just really like to highlight is the fact that it's like these people are like, this is however many generations down that they've been farming coffee. This has been here before I was even born, before like maybe even the current producer is even born. Like their family's been doing it, or their community has been doing it for generations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're basically carrying on like history if you want to get like super romantic about it. And
Sure.
You're, keeping people alive and doing what they love to do, just by buying coffee that like other people put a lot of effort into to make sure that it got to the roaster, which then got to the cafe, which then got into the consumer's hand. So yeah, I think it's super important. Like you were saying, you just need to educate what is actually going on, because you're just so far removed from that product. You can't go visit a farm. Like we could go visit the farm that potentially we buy our corn from, because it's, maybe it's your neighbor that farms it, but you can't go. You can.
Most people can't.
Most people cannot go like see the farm and like what's the working conditions like, what's the culture like behind it. Is it is there hope here, or are they telling their kids like go to college and never come back to the farm? Like this is we're dying. Not we're dying, but like the farm is dying, and like this way of life isn't realistic anymore. So I think like ensuring that these things, like this history isn't just history, it's like it carries on into the present is kind of like just very important to us.
Right. And he said something earlier about, having conversations with customers about where like our coffee comes from and all that, because I feel like the general population that drinks coffee, they just drink it because it gives them caffeine. It's like, how do you change that mindset that it's just a drink and that it's actually like a foundation for people's lives? So it's like having those conversations are very important for these people producing the coffee, because now that people know, they can back that coffee and spend more money on it, because they know that, say like us for instance, that we showcase that we care about the coffees and these producers. They'll be like, oh, I want to back these people because they're backing these producers.
Right. They're helping along the chain of everybody that it affects actually care about it.
Right.
It's also something that is like, it's almost like there's been this like craft awakening, and I mean, maybe the past 20 years, really. It's not like something that started last year.
Right.
Like in the late 90s, early 2000s, it's like people started caring about like the lineage of their wine, of their coffee,
Right.
of their food, of their cigars, of their like fill in the blank, of beer, like distilling, all these like craft industries that used to have like closed doors, no windows, and it's like you only know if you know, and if you're in the industry, like that's all you get to know. It's a commodity product. Like there's nothing special about this. To now where it's, the transparency has been ongoing, I think, over the past couple decades, to the point where it's now where you can be fake transparent because it's cool to be transparent.
Right.
But 20 years ago, there's no transparency in coffee, and it was all like mass produced product that was only sold to like achieve caffeine in the morning. And now it's like you can trace it back to the farmer's name and his like kids and the type of seed varietal that comes out of, which is where the cigar culture and the cigar industry is heading at a slower pace than coffee. Because when I got into coffee in like 2011 ish, it was like, whoa, it was really cool to see all that happen. I didn't get into cigars till like 2015. And that was like, there was like one brand talking about like where he was buying his tobacco, what the factory was, why he was doing it there. And now we're in this whole new day and age of cigars. Coffee is still doing it, which is really cool. And now I think other industries are also kind of following suit as like customers want more and more of that. So anyway, I say all of that because even down, especially a lot of you listening or watching this that have bought the Proud Hound coffee or see coffee on like your supermarket shelf and you're like, how is this thing like $15 for a bag or $20 for a bag? It's like, because it's actually doing something beyond, like it's doing something good. And the quality, one, is better, but two, it's like, it's affecting people's lives in a more positive way, I think, now than it ever has.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say so. And it's also, it's just, I think the hardest part, and this might be, I don't know if this is the same for like people like in the cigar community, is like trying to get people to understand like what you're like putting value on. And like what's actually, like where's the value in, you know, if let's say like we just bought a $12 a pound coffee, how can we justify selling it at $30 a pound or $30 for 10 ounces, not even like a pound.
Right.
And there's just, you gotta get people started, I think, even just asking those questions of like what, not in like a snobby way or a disgusted way of like, you know, like, oh, $30 for a bag, I'd never buy that. Like, I'll just go to Kroger or, you know, my local supermarket and buy my $8 a pound coffee or whatever.
You guys are making a killing off of this bag.
Yeah. I wish. It's interesting. Like it's almost like you have to start a new conversation every time because you can't use the same approach with every single person. You can't be like, well, you should care about it because like this person's in a different country. It's just like, well, I can't even talk to that person. And so it's like, well, do you do something where maybe they can, like you do like these like web seminars or something where it's like, all right, we're going to talk about this farm and this coffee, and like you can actually like hop on and you can see the farmer and like their farm and take like a virtual tour. Or is it just like, you know, what's the approach almost that you have to take to like get people interested and pique their interest and get them excited? Because I think we might even all have like a different story of like why we got excited about coffee. So yeah, it's a big challenge, I think, right now. It is understanding like what transparency is good, and like is there actually like even bad transparency? I don't even know if I'm like broaching a different topic now, but I have a lot of conversation with importers where they're like, we don't even like giving out this information because we don't see how it's going to be helpful other than in like you can sell it. Like you can sell the idea of it to somebody and they can feel like even better about buying the coffee because this much more information got added to make sure it was like even more transparent. So yeah, there's like, it's even with like the idea like we need to be transparent. It's like, how do we also take very careful steps to not go like to one extreme or the other?
Right. So here's a change up question in regard. So I think that's great background on like sourcing, transparency, farmers. Like there's a lot of crossover cigars and coffee. Like it's literally, there's so much crossover, it's not even funny, especially when you're like down in the Dominican Republic or Nicaragua and you're like seeing the farmers. And anyway, when it comes to roasting and brewing coffee, because I think you guys might have two different answers, which is exciting.
Most likely.
I want to know what you, David, and you, Dan, look for in a coffee that is like, this is a winning coffee to me. Even beyond like, oh, I want it to be like this specific tasting note, like more general, like what do you want the coffee, what characteristics are you looking for like, that's a great coffee?
So I'm big on like with coffees, obviously you have different realms of what you want out of coffee. So you have the classic, like I could drink this all day. It's not going to change at all. It's like just chocolatey, very smooth, whatever. Then you also have the coffees that are more about the experience. And so those coffees are what I like a lot because it kind of breaks the ground for customers or people to be like, oh, coffee can taste this way. It doesn't have to just be bold, dark, roasty flavor. It can be fruity or florally. You know, sometimes it can taste like jalapenos, like crazy stuff like that. And I feel like
today.
Exactly, the one today we had, so good.
Straight jallops.
And But that's like a huge perk about coffee is that there's so much out there. There's so many varieties of coffee that are so unexplored, and people aren't trying those because they're expensive. So it's like I feel like people are so into those experiences though that they could or would want to try something new. So I like those coffees that are just like wild because they bridge that gap and kind of open people's minds a little bit.
Yeah.
While I do like the wild coffees and their, in their uniqueness and getting experimental, and they do push coffee forward as an industry of like, where are we going to take coffee next?
Mm-hmm.
You can't, it's like the beer industry. Like you couldn't do IPAs forever. I mean, you can, but
Right.
like there's going to be a crowd that's like, okay,
Long live lagers.
yeah. Like it's like we did lagers for 200 years. What's next kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think because my approach is very like, it's how do you create an experience that a majority, like in inviting people in. And I think those experiences invite people in once they're to a certain point in coffee, unless they're like, an outlier and they're like, I'm here for extremes. Like I'm ready to like jump in and see what this is about. I like coffees that are super balanced. And that's kind of like I enjoy roasting those coffees as well. It's like, how do you take a coffee that you could just blast it and get it to like second crack a dark roast, and you can get it to taste the same all the way through because like you took the coffee to where like it just starts to kind of taste like carbon.
Right.
We love that.
But they definitely wouldn't shine as a super light coffee because they just it's not, there's nothing there, there's no like actual plant material that's going to make that coffee taste like that, so you can't even achieve it. So like don't try. But where's the balance of like, there's these notes that I want you to taste, but they're not going to like, it's not a mind-blowing coffee,
right?
But it's like it's a good experience front to back. You can drink it all, like you can drink it black, you can put some cream in it, you still get some of those notes to come through, and it's not like, because you get those people that are like, I like cream with my coffee or coffee with my cream or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, those I like and appreciate to find those coffees because I think a lot of that's what a lot of coffee is. Farmers don't always have the opportunity to like take a section of their lot and try and like do a super experimental thing on it, because it's such a risk.
So much
money and there's risk. It's like, what if I can't sell this? So they're like, I'm just gonna do what I always do. And so I think once you can find those coffees and then roast them and prove like these are good, and you can get even better. And once you start paying for that coffee that's good and it was like maybe not valued at what it could have been, and then that farmer's like, oh, I got paid this much more, so now I can invest this much more into either like my farm or my family or whatever. Right. That just allows and frees up more room for them to be like, I do kind of want to get into like, how do I get better farm management, and how do I like plant my farm in a way that it's multi-purpose. I'm growing coffee next to another, local produce that they can grow wherever they're at, and get better yields. So now I'm selling more coffee at a higher price, and then the next year it's like, okay, I got all that, I'm paying my employees more. Okay, I got that. Now I'm like ready to step into what's it look like to do, this double, triple anaerobic fermentation on a coffee, because somebody took my coffee that wasn't valued and was like, oh, I could sell this, but I can also pay you this much because I could sell it for this much. Mm-hmm. So that's my mindset for, I think, coffee in general, is finding those, what could coffee be, right, and like helping it like showcase it and make it shine,
and knowing there's still a place to like have the balanced, approachable coffees and still like encourage producers to experiment with their lots, because there is a group of people that appreciate the exotic. Mm-hmm. And like when you drink a coffee, like, I don't know, maybe many people have this, or maybe it's just me. I literally can distinctively remember the first time I had a natural processed coffee and was like, okay, this doesn't taste like coffee.
What
like
is
this tastes like strawberries.
Yeah.
And that's the weirdest thing I've ever experienced. And everyone's going to think I'm crazy. And then you share with them, they're like, whoa, maybe they don't get strawberry, but they're like, this thing's like a fruit bomb. And then you just fall down that hole of like, oh, I got to have more of that, like those experimental lots, the ones that make you think differently. What is there like? Is there misconceptions or like common misconceptions that you find with like specialty coffee, like how people perceive it, that is like frustrating?
I think the biggest one is just like the snobbery or pretentiousness that a specialty cafe might hold, because you'd come in there as a person who like maybe just goes to Starbucks and then they ask for these drinks and they're like, we don't do that here. Like we aren't on your level.
Right.
We're way up here. You're down here.
Right.
That is the general feel that I feel like a lot of people might have at a place that is strictly doing like the craziest coffees, and if they hold themselves higher because they do that.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like you're not there to experience that. So like, why are you here? Kind of thing.
Yeah. You just feel like an asshole standing there. You're like, okay, I'll just leave. I'm not worthy. I guess.
Yeah. I think my thing is like, and not that this isn't like to put blame on the customer. I don't know. I think it's an issue of like maybe lack of communication and like how we're specialty coffee. What is specialty coffee is people like, I get it all the time. Like maybe like a college person comes in with like their parents, and like the parents just like, oh, I don't drink any of the like the
fruit drinks.
Yeah, I don't drink. I don't want like any like flavors or anything in my coffee. Like just give it to me like as dark as you can and as black as you can. And it's like that's even harder because in they ask like, oh, what do you got on drip? And you have to like almost come up with new language to explain like, here's like what it is, but also because if you tell someone like that's asking that, they're like, oh yeah, like it tastes like burnt oranges.
Yeah,
and they're like,
they're out.
What? They're like, how'd you get the burnt oranges? So
you put lavender sticks in the coffee,
especially when they like read the label. They're like, you put grapes in this?
Yeah.
What's that?
I think that is like, it's not. I think some people would argue it's like, oh, it's a customer's job to like be able to catch up and figure it out. But I honestly think that it's like the barista's job to
meet them where they're at, basically.
Yeah, like you're almost like a concierge of coffee for these people to be like, you're coming into my space, and like why am I like, it'd be unreasonable for me to expect you to understand everything that's happening if you've never been here before. So it's like, how do I walk you through? Which I think goes back to the snobbery. Yeah. But I mean, you can have like non-pretentious people that still maybe like miss the mark on like being able to really grab somebody to be like, oh, this is coffee, but it's also a little bit something more than coffee. And it makes them kind of want to come back because, I think honestly, like the first step is just being like super inviting and kind. And then them being like, oh, like that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I want to experience.
I didn't
more
really
I didn't
understand like what else was going on, but like that was like they were nice to me.
Yeah.
And like the environment was cool. So that's my biggest thing is just like, it is like the barista's job and your team's job to want people to come back for the reason other than just coffee, than just what the coffee is or like what that experience was. Right.
And like coffee can't, propel forward without more people from the public, grasping on to what specialty coffee is. So if you're not offering them that great guest experience, then
why would they ever want to be a part of it?
Exactly. So then, now it's like you screwed up.
And there's this in cigars, there's this like cigar review culture kind of thing where like people come up with like the craziest tasting notes and like phrases and expressions and flavors that they're getting out of the cigar, and some people are like, I don't know, it tastes like burnt tobacco to me. Like but people feel the same way about coffee a lot of times too, where it's like, okay, I get that you said like clementine, like
Bingberry,
like Maine honey, not to be confused with like Georgia honey.
Yeah.
And like this other thing and Tabasco. It's like tastes like coffee. But also being able to like get to that level of people where it's like you can perceive whatever specific tastes and notes and fruits and whatever you want to compare it to. But you can also meet people and be like, this one is very sweet. This one is like kind of darker and chocolatier, and this one's like really acidic, like if you're eating an orange or a lemon. And like there's ways to, I think, like meet people there and be like, you don't need to taste the like 40 different specific tasting notes we're going to go through here in cigars and coffee and wine. But this one is super balanced, and this one's not balanced at all. It's like very one way, and it's really cool if you're interested in trying something that you've never tasted before.
Yeah.
And I think once people start to like get closer to that, I've seen that happen with cigars and in tobacco, it's like, taste whatever the heck you want to taste in this, but it's a really spicy cigar.
Yep.
Or it's a really sweet cigar. And that's because it's grown at this altitude in this country and it's fermented for 3 years instead of 2 years. And that's what happens when it changes. And I think that goes back to like good transparency,
Yep.
but also, like you said, really good cafe experience, like for the customer where they feel welcomed and not like, cool, I don't have to taste blueberries. I can just taste sweet fruit.
Also, yeah, I don't have to know that this was like a semi-washed Caturra.
Like,
No,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, translation?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like figuring out like you can.
What did he just say?
Yeah, you can speak like the coffee language, but like also in a way, just in a way that they understand. I
Well,
think.
yeah, if they want that, you
Yeah,
can
exactly.
easily tell when somebody is interacting with you whether or not they want to know all the info about this coffee.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, when it cools down to after 40 minutes, it's like, oh, it tastes like, wild, lemon berries, if that's even a real thing, and like eucalyptus or whatever. It's reading, their reaction.
How many times was this cherry rotated on the outside drying bed?
Yeah.
And what was her name?
Yeah. That'd be the most
I
transparent
miss
thing.
her.
That'd be the most transparency ever.
20 turns,
Exactly. 10 turns an hour
an hour.
on day 1. Day 2, 13 turns,
Now we're talking.
which really helps bring out the brightness of the coffee.
Yeah.
That's my favorite talk right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Now we're freaking talking.
That's how you get me in.
What so you guys do a lot of single origin coffees, which would be like coffee from one farm, one country,
Yep.
one region. But sometimes in specialty coffee, blends get a bad rap, which recently I've been a big blend guy, and we launched the Cigar Club coffee series. Like a lot of them are going to end up being blends because we're trying to bring a specific profile that can go with cigars. And one of the most frustrating things to me going from the coffee world to the cigar world was specialty lighter roasted coffee. To me, my favorite light, bright, juicy coffees taste horrific with a cigar. Like they just don't go together. But then like charred to the bone Cuban coffee with like a little sugar and a cigar is like heaven on earth. But I was like, there's got to be a way that we can like have still really good coffees that are like just non-commodity coffees, graded well, like of quality, not roasted to like total char level. There's got to be a way to like make a coffee that's enjoyable with a cigar, which is what we set out to do with the first one we did with you guys. And I think we did it. But to kind of like bring this all to like a head, can you give us like a brief synopsis on like blending coffees and how because we landed with like this Mexican Chiapas, like dark chocolatey coffee and like the sweeter Costa Rican for like that. So we had like the chocolate and the sweet. You developed them a little longer than you would on most of your coffees, like little, and by developed longer, like roasted them a little darker. And we came out with this coffee that was just awesome. Like it still had some acidity, it had tons of sweetness, tons of chocolatiness, and with the cigar it was just amazing. But what is that process of like blending coffees together to create like a general profile?
I think the biggest thing, and I'm very new to blending, and I'm sure like someone out there is going to be like, that's not how you do it at all, which is fine. I'm not going to claim to be an expert. Is obviously like by region and by process and varietals, you get a lot of like, this is the area in like a tasting wheel where that coffee is going to land. And so from there, you just kind of have to think, what's my end? What am I trying to like, what's the end experience?
Right.
So like for our summer blend, we're like, what's just like as soon as you taste that, you might not even be able to be like put a name to it, but you're like, oh, this is something I drink in the summer.
I'm refreshed.
Yeah.
How do you make a coffee refreshing?
Yeah. So for us, like we knew, okay, it's probably gonna involve like an Ethiopian, maybe a natural to give some of that more like really intense, like lemon tartness. And then probably something to really balance it out to make it so that it's not like, oh, that was so tart and so like acidic. And I'm not going to be, because usually when you're in the summer, you're crushing something like over and over and over again because you're like, I'm cooling down or, like he said, I'm getting super refreshed. So for cigars, knowing like when you smoke a cigar, like there's a sensation in your mouth. I mean, you have smoke in your mouth.
Right.
So there's already, like if you introduce something that's going to be super intense, it's probably going to sting or like just be like this really like
off-putting.
you're just going to be like, I don't want either of these anymore now.
Right. Like nobody's drinking lemonade with a cigar.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
So I think once you know, like, tobacco, for me, I'm not like a huge cigar buff in any means. Usually like has a lot of spice to it.
yep.
Sits really heavy on your mouth. Definitely going to like linger for a very long time.
100%.
So how do you get a coffee that kind of does all that, but doesn't take away from that experience where it's like, I smoke the cigar, I taste it, now I drink the coffee, and I only taste that. Now I gotta go back, I gotta go back. They're like, play off each other a little bit. So for us, it's like, I think, and this next one, we're definitely gonna go more like a honey process. I think honey process does really well. And
just like makes it a
all the
sweeter
sweet
coffee, right? The way
characters.
that gives
it's
it like that,
processed.
like, and it helps with like some spice, like a sweet spice.
Cool.
And then almost always like a wash coffee that isn't going to, it will add a little bit of a sweetness to it, so you can still maybe even enjoy that coffee when you're not smoking a cigar with it. Or it reminds you of that cigar, depending on what
Sure.
you're smoking. But definitely, like, again, it's about that balance for me. Really, with blend is like, I'm gonna take all these flavor profiles and figure out what happens if I balance them all together.
Like
or-
taking the
yeah.
best parts of each.
That's exactly what blends are for, is to offer balance.
You also
Yeah.
get notes that like you couldn't achieve usually just with one coffee, which I think a lot of people will be like, well, that's cheating, or like that's impure or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's also like, yeah, but
It's good coffee.
it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which we could find a coffee and roast it a specific way and it would go great with the cigar.
Yeah.
But you can also like take the advantage of like coffees that have very predominant notes and like put them together to create this ultra balanced
Yep.
coffee god
Mm-hmm.
bean.
And really, I just feel like blending is a ton of experimentation too, like figuring out the ratios of this coffee and that coffee, because
Just like blending cigars.
nice. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Because you could have a single origin cigar. It's called a
know.
Puro,
Ooh.
where it's all tobacco from one country. But most cigars, I think I could say most, that's a fair assessment, are multi-country blends. Because one country region gives you your power and your strength. One gives you like good burning so that it doesn't like go out on you. And then another country might give you all your sweetness. And it's like,
Yeah.
I want all those things. I want good combustion, I want strength, and I want sweetness. So let me just
cool.
do that number.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our take so far has been like, we know what we're going for, so we'll get samples of those coffees, just put them all on the table, and then you just start mixing after. Like, we don't dry mix. We do basically like start the cupping, and you're mixing like the liquids. So you're like, all right, let me do like one spoon of
cool.
this, one spoon of that.
Yeah.
What's that taste like after it's been extracted? Little trick I learned from the guy that taught me roasting was
Cool.
like, that's how they do their blends. And then you just waste less product, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest thing.
Well, that's
that they
exactly
do
what it's going to taste like because
Yeah.
they're fully extracted in a liquid form.
Exactly.
So that's like just our approach is, we find it's like, if we're doing the blend, it's like, all right, this is where we want to land. Let's look at like all the tasting notes and see like if that note's there. Obviously we could like pull it out of the coffee during the roasting process, but what do we blend it with to either like pronunciate it or mute it a little bit, but it's still there. And then working with CigarClub, then it's like, okay, well, we got to have a coffee that beats your standard. Like, this is exactly like we want the experience to be. And it's like, okay, then we know I can go to import and say like, here's all the notes I'm looking for, origins,
cool. Yeah.
process, down to like, here's my budget.
Yeah.
And then they can, if they know you well enough and you've been communicating with them well enough, they're like, all right, here's boom, 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 boom. These meets all your criteria plus whatever like criteria you have of like who you want to work with and what's important to you, and still presenting that coffee through like a transparent lens. And
Totally.
And I think blends to get a bad rep because a lot of roasters will just buy the crap, basically, that be like,
Cheapest
these are the
coffee.
cheapest coffees that we can get away with still selling at still like a less price point, but still making more dollars off of cheaper coffee.
House blend.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
like, it's not that hard to make a chocolatey coffee, anything like that. So that's
Actually, that Costa Rica, I just forgot. I can't even get it anymore because it was a one-off where they had 6 families, 6 producers that they just had lots of honey process that they couldn't sell. And so the importers like blend them, and they blended them all together, and then they sold it as that.
Oh, cool.
So like even importers are, if a coffee doesn't sell, like let's say you have an 83 coffee that didn't cup super well, and an 85 that didn't
meaning
sell
they're
super
like
well.
rated 83, rated 85?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So like the cupping score. And you're like, well, how do we sell this coffee? We bought it, but we can't sell it as is. So what do we do to sell it? You take another coffee, which again, you're not combining like bad coffee with good coffee. You're combining coffee that like couldn't stand on its own,
right,
just due to like a lot of different circumstances, with a coffee that maybe you had a lot of extra, and you blend them together, and you're like, oh, this is it.
Great.
Yep. Yeah. So.
And that's more sustainable for that farm anyway, because now they can turn over their crop and start a new one.
And the importer. It's it's good for everybody. Yeah. And I don't think it takes away from anything in the process of, you get some washing stations where it's like that's all the coffee goes to that washing station, and unless it's like super good, they're gonna get blended anyways, depending on like what that washing station does.
Like you might see something co-op, and just like that whole
that's
co-op.
what co-op is. Aha. Cool.
So yeah, that's where you get down to like producer IDs or like plot IDs and stuff like that. It's like, so I mean, if importers can do it, we can do it.
Yeah. And I love all the blends coming out of this joint.
Is there a rating system for cigars?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially at factories, they'll buy certain grades, is what they call them. And the factory will go to wherever the farm is. They'll go through bales of tobacco and they'll grade the different bales and be like, all right, I'll take this one. And when they come in, they have to recheck them all to make sure that's the grade they paid for. And it's like, what kind of defects are on the leaf? Is the color consistent across each leaf? Like, or does it change like different shades? And that's how they get graded. Cool. And that's what will change the price of a cigar basically.
Makes sense.
Is how specific do you want to grade this tobacco? And that's how the price per pound will go up. Or you can buy like super cheap graded, like whatever you want. And then that's how you get like, you could have one cigar line that they're all like different shades. And you're like, how is this the same cigar? It's like, well, it is. They're just not sorted and graded well. So that's cool. It's like the really legit factory owners spend a lot of time just like grading and sorting tobacco for each project.
Nice.
But yeah, that's just like another parallel with this, which is just crazy. Wow. We've been going at this. Everybody got a good coffee geek fix today. At least I hope they did. And we got a lot more coming with the guys at Proud Hound Coffee Series Blend number 2. Going to be coming out in the fall, people. But get ready. New bags, new coffees, same great outcome, like with any good Proud Hound bean. But anyway, thank you guys. Thanks for letting us crash.
That's awesome.
On the off day, on the work closed day, the chairs are up.
No off days.
They said no worries. Maybe tomorrow we'll sneak in a quick coffee pairing at Proud Hound.
Not Speedway this time?
Not Speedway.
Dang.
Speedway was rough. I've seen some rough things. The worst though is Burger King still to this day.
I've never thought to go there for coffee.
I know. There's a reason you never thought to go there for coffee.
Is the coffee also charbroiled or?
I wish.
Could be.
That would have had more flavor than what I tasted.
Final thought. What's the best fast food coffee? Because I know which one it is.
You say White Castle?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Fast food coffee or like can
Fast
Starbucks
food.
count?
No.
Okay, fast food. I mean, I think White Castle's our highest rated one. White Castle.
Did you try Taco Bell yet?
No. Okay, hold on. Don't ruin it because we go there every time Ramsey's in town. We go to Taco Bell and they're either we get there before 10 or we get there at 10. They're like, we're not doing breakfast today. And it's like, cool, I don't need breakfast. I just need coffee. They're like, we didn't brew any. And I'm like, so it's ever elusive, but it's on the list. That's your favorite?
That is my favorite.
Do you have a favorite fast food coffee?
I haven't had it. Dang.
We gotta get Dave on the fast food coffee game.
Dang, I'm not on it. I'm not on the game.
What are you doing?
Not drinking fast food coffee. I'm here, man.
Commodity coffee like we talked about
That's
the whole
right.
time. Okay, Taco Bell's up next.
Nice.
And we'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens. Well, after this, of course. This will be tomorrow.
We should put Taco Bell on a cupping table and see what happens.
Yeah. Actually, we should just cup like 7 fast food coffees.
We've done that before.
And we'll see what happens.
All
We'll see
right.
who comes out on top.
That'd be good.
Probably not us.
Well, no. You guys aren't fast food coffee.
Why not?
A table of just
fast food.
You don't have a drive-through.
Not yet.
Not yet. That's
It's
true.
not really cupping, but it would be. You just pour it in each cup.
Yeah.
They brew it hot enough that it wouldn't cool down.
Maybe
That's
they
for
brew it
sure.
hot enough. You
Maybe
could
this
drive
is
to,
our
like,
announcement
Kansas.
that we're starting a fast food restaurant.
Dang. Maybe it is.
Maybe it is, maybe it's
you
not.
guys heard it. Maybe you didn't. We can't tell you until next time.
No confirmation, but maybe.
I like that final thought.
Cool.
That was a
That
good
was
way.
good.
That's gonna get people. People are gonna be triggered a little bit. I think I can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know what you think about Taco Bell coffee, people. No, and if you're in the Cincinnati area, you need to come here
That'd be sweet.
in Silverton, and you need to become a patron. Proud Hound Coffee. Let them know Cigar Club sent you. Who knows what will happen? They might even, based on what I tell them, they might even charge you more for coming to the shop if you're lucky.
100%.
If you're lucky.
Discount
Discount. But anyway, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
Awesome.
time. And Cigar Club fam, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, like the video. If you're on YouTube, drop a comment. And if you're listening on, I always forget the rundown, Spotify, Apple Music, or Google Podcasts, which I found out. One guy DM'd me. He's listening on Google Podcasts. This one's for you, pal. Make sure you download and like the video as well. And the podcast, I should say. Until next time, same place, same time, Tuesdays, 9 a.m. Cigar Club Podcast will drop again. Talk to you all soon. Happy smoking and happy sipping.